Three ways that we attack the problem. The first is the legal component. There's three statutes that we operate here under in Florida, and I'll talk to you about those in a second. There is what I call the clinical component. So I have two clinicians on staff, the a la carte option for families if they want it, that help us to put together the right program. Because obviously you can go to treatment and you can stay in treatment, but if you don't stay in treatment long enough in the right clinically appropriate facility, then getting a great result, getting that miracle of recovery becomes very difficult. So they help us to put together the right clinical program. And then the third component is what I call law enforcement. So I have a private investigator on staff who has a team of his own investigators, because we get a lot of calls for people in the streets, missing people. And if I can get a court order to pick somebody up, to grab them, get them to a place of safety, rather than wait for the police to go do it, we'll do it ourselves. And it's not because the police don't care, it's just that they don't have the resources to go looking for some of our people. And, with us, time is the enemy, right? We need to get people to a place of safety until otherwise something tragic can happen. And so those are the three main components that we use to save a family, because it's really the family that's sick. I mean, they're so used to this craziness, they don't know any other way. And so, I mean, that's why they call it a family disease, because it's like a metastasizing cancer. It is literally destroying the family from within. And so they come to us to solve that problem. So that's what we do.
Thank you so much. I must say, I'm very familiar with what you call Baker acting, because when I had I think it was almost a year, there was someone who came into my life through recovery. Her name was Pilar. She is my angel, because we were born in exactly the same date, same day, different country. Her father was Jewish, her mother was from Argentina, of course, different, culture, but same exact birthday. She could not stay sober. And I had about almost a year. And I remember getting a call in the middle of the night, because I was that person who was going to rescue everyone, because they told me to do service early on. And, I was, for some reason, the person called me. I can't remember the details. It was 24 years ago. He said she was about to get Baker acted. She was going to, I want you to go into details as to what that, but let me tell you my experience. So he called me into the hospital. I had to go to the hospital. And she had been using more than just alcohol. My bottom was with alcohol. I had used other things, but by the time I got sober, I had put away everything else. So she was under the influence of everything, and she was about to surrender herself to the state. The state meaning they take control of your life. And it was just myself and her friend. Her father, who lived in Aventura, coincidentally, where I lived, had enough. He wanted nothing to do with her. So the two of us were just there. I was a very naive person to think that I could take this on. That's how I know how heavy such an issue is for the family, because I've never had to deal with people outside of, just people I see in the room as alcoholics. My family, of course, I had a few, but to go through the legal process of helping someone get help when they are resistant to that help, sometimes the state has to step in, and that's what Baker acting is. Explain to the audience, please, what that involves.
Okay, so I'll talk about Baker, but maybe if you don't mind, Sendra, there's two other statutes that we operate under, because and sometimes it may be all three at once. So there's the Marchman Act.
Feel free. This is your show.
Well, I'm just a guest, but I appreciate the sentiment. There's the Marchman Act, which is a statute that's unique to Florida, which allows us to put somebody into treatment for chunks of up to 90 days, which can be repeated when there's a primary substance use disorder, or when we can prove there's a primary substance use disorder. There's the guardianship statute, which traditionally had been really intended for elderly people. But my brilliant wife came along with the idea, because she'd spent many years in Massachusetts in a past life helping people with the guardianship process. We decided we thought we could try to use it for cases that, like the ones we handle, where there's serious behavioral health issues, and the family needs a lot more control than a Marchman Act can give them. And then, as you pointed out, the Baker Act, and that is as you correctly pointed out, which most people don't know, it's a statute that allows the state of Florida to take custody of you and make you a temporary ward of the state, where there is where somebody is in immediate need of mental health services, i.e. they may be suicidal. And so depending on the case, it's not unusual for us to be working a Marchman Act and a guardianship together at the same time. So we're in two different courtrooms, And then in the middle of this, somebody gets Baker Acted because they have some type of break. And so understanding how all three of these statutes really work together is important, because they do work together. And then obviously the criminal arena, which I had on my mind for a second because I was prosecutor for a long time too.
Correct. We forgot to mention that you did work for the state. You were a prosecutor.
I was a prosecutor and I did defense work. And so sometimes in the middle of all of this, somebody can be arrested and end up in the county jail, or when the family calls us, the person's already in the county jail. And while we don't handle that aspect of the case, we'll bring in criminal counsel. Understanding how all of that stuff really works together is incredibly important, because once you do, then you can navigate the system and get the case to go where you need it to go, which is basically keep somebody, out of the system, whatever that might be.
Right.
And into treatment, so they can start to get better, and the family can start to experience that miracle that you've have experienced. So that's
fantastic.